Hey guys, it's Rita here with Empowerment and All That. Thanks for tuning in to the podcast. I want to let you know that I'm actually using Anchor as the easiest way to make this podcast. Anchor actually gives me everything that I need all in one place for free, which I can use right from my phone or my computer. The creation tools allow for me to record and edit my podcast so it sounds fabulous. Best part about it, though, is that they distribute it for me so I can be heard anywhere from Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and so many more. Want to know a secret? You can actually make money from this podcast with no minimum listenership. Download the Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started. Now back to the show. Hey guys, this is Rita Bautista, and this is the first episode of my podcast. And I'm here with two of my favorite friends, Sanchita and Divya. They're both extremely amazing, empowering women who are just living badasses. So I'm going to let them do a quick little intro about themselves, and then we're going to dive into some loving yourself for this episode.
Yes. So I'm Sanchita Bose. I moved to Houston last summer and had the joy of living with Divya and meeting Rita. And I've learned a lot about myself this year, especially a lot about loving yourself and empowerment. And I'm excited to be a part of this. Rita's dream.
Thank you.
I am Divya Ajay, and I met Rita at 5 a.m. at a workout place, and that was very, very empowering in itself. And I want to say that I'm very grateful for having lived with Sanchita. I am still in the journey of trying to love myself, and I'm trying to get there. And Rita's quotes and I think she says it's very inspiring. So I'm looking forward to this episode.
Oh, that's great. So I'm excited. So I know you guys have probably noticed I've been posting positive quotes on my Instagram, and some people have asked why I've been doing this consistently it's going to be 365 days by the time I'm done. But I think I'm actually just going to extend it and maybe branch off and do its own thing, but I'm not sure yet. So the purpose for why I did that actually is kind of grounded in a lot of self-love and self-understanding. And I started on this journey about 4 or 5 years ago. I had a couple traumatic incidents that kept happening. One that started with grieving once my grandmother passed away, and then just other things that started to spiral. I got into some pretty toxic relationships with people that didn't end up working out. And so after that, I realized it was about time to wake up. And when I woke up, I was like, oh my God, I've wasted all this time on not focusing on myself and not putting the attention and the love that I needed, that I was putting in other people. I was giving it to them, and I was draining myself of what I needed in order to be the person that was, a little bit more confident and just outgoing. So that was my purpose for why I started doing the Instagram posts. And the other reason is because when I was going through my things, I would always turn to the hashtags on Instagram. And so I felt like it was my little return or my thank you back to the world for what I was getting out of the messages that other people were posting too. So so that's my little thing.
So what's been your the message that got the most responses so far and just kind of touched a lot of people?
Oh, wow. It's funny. I posted one on Sunday, and I have kind of been doing these little tests too to see what actually gets more reactions out of people. And the one for Sunday was don't forget to rest. So don't forget to give yourself a day, a Sunday or whatever. And it was my Sunday. I literally I was resting, but I'd also gotten my, did my hair or whatever, my makeup, and posted the photo. And I wasn't sure if it was because of the actual message that I put behind it, but underneath I put my little caption, and I was like, watch that reality show, read that book, lay on the grass, give yourself a minute, because we are so focused on going, and we're so career and goal oriented that sometimes we forget that it's okay to give ourselves that one day to just give back to ourselves and just replenish our energy. So that was probably one of the most liked or the most engagement that I've gotten on posts.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, I get more text messages from friends now who are thank you so much for what you posted. I've been watching you every day. I have a professor of mine from college who's been following me every single day, and she makes it a point to write something And it's just like, you know, I'm following you on this journey, like, and it's pretty empowering, and it reminds me that now it's no longer about me. It's more about like making sure that I have that purpose that I started off with. It's just like more thanking everybody for the messages that I was receiving and just, you know, returning them back. So yeah.
There's so much like negativity on social media, and even if like the posts themselves are not negative, you can make them negative for yourself by like comparing yourself to like somebody else's life and being like, oh my god, their lives are so perfect, like oh they have this perfect boyfriend with a perfect job and a perfect, you know, perfect like life, and I don't. But like, so it's like so rare to find that like inspiration and to find that positivity on social media. It's just like, it's really nice, you know.
No, yeah.
Kind of piggybacking off of that though, Rita, I was thinking, you know, whenever I look at you and have known you for this past year, and you know, I know we all have our things going on, but you really do embody that empowerment, that self-love. But I know, you know, you said you weren't always there. So what kind of made you wake up, or where did you kind of start getting that inspiration within yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what's interesting is that sometimes one of the hardest things in the world is to turn the mirror on ourselves and really kind of just do this self-reflection of what's really going on. And sometimes it's not necessarily always the other person. Sometimes there are some things that we are doing that are not healthy to ourselves. I mean, I was drinking way too much. I was not focusing on getting just simple tasks completed. I was, you know, dating the wrong people. And I'm not saying that they're bad people. They just weren't the right people for me. And I knew it. But I knew that combativeness was what I appreciated at that moment, and it just was what I needed to kind of mask whatever else was going on with me. And so, I mean, and I'm talking about like I've gone through therapy, which I am a number one supporter of therapy for anybody who just feels like there is something that is inside of you that you can't explain, or just emotions that you can't really communicate to other people, because you don't know any better, but just like more or less because how's that tea? But you know, I mean, it gives you that ability to just kind of talk in a safe space, but not just even the safe space, the ability to really listen to yourself,
reflect. Yeah.
So that helped. But I think the last straw for me on myself was my reflection on a toxic relationship that I had. And I was just like, wow, not just was that person toxic for me, I was being extremely toxic to that person and to myself, you know, but it was like a light bulb that went off, and I was like, all of this that's gone on, it needs to stop immediately. Like it has to stop right now.
You just need to clean the slate.
And
get it going.
And a part of it started with me like moving from New Orleans. I moved here with like, I literally sold every single piece of furniture, everything. If I could have come here with like the shirt off my back, I probably would have been fine with that. Like I literally needed to start fresh and new, and like new career, new life, new everything. Like it was like new year, new me kind of thing. And it really, I don't know, it became just like that, something that I knew I needed to continue growing on. And so, yeah, that's, you know, that's kind of what my thing is. But I want to know, what do you guys do personally for your own moments of self-love? Like, how do you show your self-love?
Yeah. Do you want to? Okay. Well, for me, I think a lot of it, my big thing, and I'm glad, you know, you brought that up, is I have a lot of negative self-talk. I like the negative talk that's going on in my brain all the time. Like, so, you know, when I'm at work, I'm in the OR, you know, there's just constant, like, you can't do this. You can't do this as well as that other person can do it. So I think for me, just taking the time out to not be in that space, to meditate. I started meditating this year.
Oh, I'm a huge proponent.
I cannot stress how amazing it is to just try to turn all of that chatter off, just the chatter. And then, you know, for me, a huge part of it is being active and going for a walk around the block. We're going for a walk with Rita, or we're just like going to our classes. You know, I just need to turn that chatter that's going on in my brain off. And then a lot of it is reformatting. Meditation, I feel like, lets you refocus your energy. And I started doing this a lot, you know, last year, my last year of residency in the operating room. I was like, when I was scrubbing, I'd be like, you got this. But it sounds so silly, but just the going over the mantras in your head, and it's just that chatter. I just need to turn it off, and I think meditation really helps, and just being active and moving and being outside of my head.
Yeah.
So, those are all really strong, and I feel like when I do those things, it's really good. But I'm still like, I think in a phase where I'm like learning self-love. You know, it's like not something that's like a routine part of my life. It's not something I like think about. But I don't know, like why do we get into like toxic relationships, and like how do we identify them, and how do we like get out?
Well, I don't want to change the subject, but I want to say, coming from your side of it, Divya, like, and I think you mean toxic relationships with other people, but when I came into this roommate situation with Divya, I would, every day I'd come back and be like, wow, I just can't do this case. I can't do this. I can't do that. And Divya has always been like, no, Sanchita, you're so good. I was in the OR with you. You can do this. And so some of us, we can have why do we get into a toxic relationship with ourselves?
Right.
Which is me, you know?
Absolutely.
And Divya, I think and not to say, like, I'm not trying to frame your experience or anything, but I think that's something that you do very well, you know? Maybe if you have toxic relationships with other people, but with yourself, I think you're like, you can do the stuff that you do at work. I'm always using work as an example because it's a big part of our lives.
I mean, 15 years, we just talked about that.
But Divya's like, she's such a boss, you know? You're such a boss, and you make me feel better, because one of my toxic relationships is with myself, you know, with all that chatter. But yes, why do we get into those relationships? I think some of it is, you know, we need to learn, and I think I've learned a lot about my own relationship with myself this year, but I don't want to, you know, monopolize.
No, go ahead. I mean, that's what we're here for, right?
Yeah.
Is to really, I mean, I think it's a very good question. I think, so sometimes, or at least from what my personal therapy journey was, right? Like for me, a lot of it was deep rooted in my childhood and how I was brought up and how I was raised and how I was being talked to as a child. And so I thought that it was normal for those conversations to happen with myself, with relationships. And so in order to seek comfort, I would find people who would also offer me that same toxicity, because it allows for that level of comfort that I was used to as a child. And what I realized is that it's the complete opposite for what I need personally in my life. Like the last thing I need is a person that's going to make me feel like I'm nuts. I know I'm crazy, but like, everybody has some crazy, but you know, finding that person who matches your crazy level is what makes you balanced, right? Like that person who can help you plan, or, you know, or just like you said, I mean, it's the self-love, like trying to shut the negative talk off. It's not easy, but it's like pushing through that to know that there's something bigger on the other side. And just, that's kind of how I try. Because I mean, there are days where I want to, you know, I want to quit, I want to stop, I want to whatever. And it's because I'm having this internal conflict with myself. Like the biggest battle that you'll ever have in this world is with me, myself, and I. Have you guys heard that before?
I believe it.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, it's really like the toxic relationships sometimes come from the spaces that we are in that moment when we meet these people, which kind of sucks to say that. Yeah. Because it's really, it's a tough pill to swallow sometimes, because you're just like, oh man, that's hard. But the good thing is once you realize that, there are opportunities for you to see, okay, these are the things that don't suit me, so I need to stay away from that kind of thing. Not necessarily a red flag, but more or less, if I feel like my energy is being pulled away from me, or if this isn't something that's suiting me, or it makes me feel more uncomfortable, then maybe this isn't something that works for me.
My father always says that, you know, he feels like the world is a kind of a reflection of who you are. And he's like, you can create the world that you want to be in. And I felt that way about my car in some ways. Like, it's such a stupid thing, but like, I like dreamt that car into being. Like, it was like nowhere, I could not find a car that I liked at all. And then one day I was like, this is the color I want, this is the type of car I want. And it like magically appeared on the CarMax website, and I like went and got it. It like feels like a really good fit. But then it's also like, I take that around and I'm like embarrassed that these are the kind of men that I've like created that like I'm like attracted to, or like that I'm like projecting into the world, where like I can't like, you know, create like the way I created my car, a partner or like a companion that's like a good fit, you know.
But I mean, a car, you know, it's and I know like for me it's like for John, car is like it's a companion, but like for me it's like
my car is my companion right now, so I totally feel that manifestation of the vehicle.
But you know, a car is very different from a human being, right? And a human being comes with their own baggage and all that, all their own emotions, all their own self-toxicity or whatever they've come with. So it's I don't think it's a reflection of you at all, Divya. If you are in a relationship that's toxic, I don't think that's necessarily a reflection of you. That's also a reflection of this other person, you know? They're bringing their own stuff into this relationship, you know? And so it's not as simple as this car who won't talk to you and will go wherever you tell it to, you know?
Or a dog.
I don't think a man will do that. So.
My dog barely listens to me, so I'm glad I have my car, now that you put it like that.
Yeah, but I don't think that you should necessarily take that as a reflection just purely of you. You're not the only one showing up to a relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's definitely a very big point. You know, there are always going to be two people, and in those two people there are a bunch of different things on both sides.
Yeah.
But just as you manifested your vehicle into your life, you continue thinking about that thing that you love about yourself the most, that you also want to be reflected in the person that you want coming into your life. And I promise you it's going to come. Like, it's interesting that you brought that up about like, oh, I thought about this car, I manifested it into my life. I feel like as much as people think it's crazy, manifesting is such a huge part of our lives. Daydreaming, believing in these things that we are. It's like, it really does create what your life looks like. And so if you continue to seek that person that's going to fit you, that person's going to come. Like, I guarantee you that in a couple years, we're all going to be sitting here probably doing a recap of our 5-year reunion of this. And we're all going to be like, you guys remember when we were like talking about this, and look where we are now?
Yeah.
You know, like.
And I think a part of it also is just having faith in that process and having faith in that. Why do people believe in, I'm not going to try to go down that route, but you know, why do people believe in you know, something, and, you know, a higher power, or, you know, even if you're not religious, something spiritual, there's a reason to believe in that, you know, it's just about having that faith, you know?
Yeah.
So.
But, you know, and this is going to sound really, and this is my own fault. So for a long time, I was putting a lot of pressure on wanting a relationship and trying to be in a relationship so much that I think that also led to a lot of my personal downfalls in relationships, because I wanted that supplement to my life so much that I wasn't allowing myself to unfocus on that part. Like, I think there's an interesting balance with people, and I don't know why, and this is just my own personal perspective, whether it's tried by science, who knows, but I feel like with everything else, you can be razor sharp focused, right? Like, you guys became doctors. You were focused on, I'm going to be a physician, I'm going to be a surgeon, and here I am, you know, and that happens, right? But when we super hyper focus on people, they also feel that energy as like pressure. Have you guys ever felt that from somebody else in return, where you feel that like, oh, this person wants me too much, I'm just going to push them away a little bit?
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like you have to let that flow naturally for that to be something that comes in. So it's like, focus on it, but give it some room to manifest. Like, I don't know, it's just an interesting balance that I've found, at least for me, whenever I was like, oh, I love this person, I want this person to be it, and it was just like, oh, that's not the person.
Exactly. And I think it's just any sort of human relationships like that. Like, even, for example, with my brother, like, you know, after growing up, you know, I felt very our mom wasn't really around, and so I felt very mothering to him. And then at 18 years of age, I was like, I want him to do things a certain way. I want him to, you know, and he's his own person. Finally, at 18 years of age, my brother and I have a great relationship now. I'm 33, and he's 32. But at 18 years of age, he's like, you're not my mom, and I'm tired of you treating me like this, you know? And that's that getting him feeling that pressure that whole time. I mean, anytime there's any human relationships, be that romantic, sibling, anything, you know, like someone who's bringing their own personality to the table and who's bringing their own baggage to the table, there's gonna be a back and forth. So it's something that can't be forced.
It's tough.
So
it's part of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, what would you say has been, so we're in May of 2019.
Oh boy.
What have been the most positive events that you've had this year so far?
Oh, I forgot I won like a $500 research award recently.
What? Shut up, you didn't say anything. Congratulations.
I didn't pick it up.
Boss lady.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I was happy about that.
Yes.
It was like, oh, somebody's like recognizing some of the work.
Yes.
But that's, yeah, I like very much like look forward to like rewards, like, which, you know, it really shouldn't be that way. Like, I feel like
Why not?
Why
because
not?
I feel like going to work and doing what we do is a reward. You know,
Sure.
like being able to take care of like the people we take care of, like just having the opportunity to like do this itself should be like amazing and a reward.
As someone also in this field, though, it can be an extremely sometimes very thankless task. You know, you've been through residency, right? So when you get to me, I like look up to Divya as like the ultimate like academic person. So that fact that you like got something, like you've been my like mentor this whole year on this. You know, you have. The fact that you got that award, you deserve that, Divya. Like that's amazing. You know.
No, it felt really good, but then I was like, is this what I'm doing all this for? It's like these silly, like, you know, like, oh, here's a piece of paper and $500. You know what I mean? Like it has to be like a bigger,
something.
you know, picture. Like whose life have I changed by, like, you know what I mean? Like
all those people you
countless
operate
people,
on every day.
like that award did not like reflect all those people that we helped. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Fair.
If you really think about it like that, yeah. But
I mean, I think that's a very, very amazing trait about you, honestly, for you to sit here and say, I won this award and it was great that I got rewarded, but at the same time, like, what's the bigger thing of this? Like, what is there behind that? Like, that's actually really big on self-love. It's like, you love yourself at the same time, but you're pretty selfless in the sense where you can give back and also say, okay, I got this reward and I'm excited, but what is that?
how did this help other people?
Yeah, I mean, no, even the research that we do, like, that I got a warning for, I was like, I don't think it's gonna make jack of a difference, you know. Anyway, that's pretty negative. That's not self-love. Delete that from your podcast. But like,
Okay.
I think that's how it works.
I mean, yeah, well, you know, I think people like the candid moments anyway, so.
Yeah.
No, but, you know, it's a great thing that you got that award, and you will be changing lives, even though you don't believe that you are.
hope so.
You're a Virgo. You have to change lives. It's part of our horoscope.
Somebody told me the other day that Virgos always come in second. Apparently, that's a thing.
Ew.
And honestly, it was just like, don't worry about being first, because Virgos always come in second, but you'll be happy in second. I was like, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know about all that.
Our second to be.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed that I've like started doing this year, which I really like, is like I'm not trying to be first. I'm not trying to be like the best. If there was like, it's like even from the beginning of the year up to now, there were like, there's like, you know, 5 other fellows besides me, and if one of them is like significantly better than me, I always like, oh, how come he's better than me? Like maybe I can do something to be like better. But now I'm like, you know what? We're all on our own journeys. We're all on our own paths, and I'm really good at like my path, and he's not on my path. So he can be really good at what he does, and yes, I should like learn something from him. And I say him because all 5 of them are guys. But and I can like I can take some stuff from him and get better. But I like love where I am on my path, and it is a very different path than his path.
Yeah.
So maybe I should stop comparing myself, you know. Which in residency, like that's not the way I was at all.
Right.
I was like so aggressive, or like wanting to be like the best, and like you know, like
I think
and
that's a
also
part of
pushing.
self-love too, is not comparing yourself to other people.
Oh,
Like,
that's 100%.
one of the, Rita and I were just talking about this when I came into this, a lot of it, I mean, starting with the job too, I came into fellowship, I always compared myself to these residents.
Yeah.
I told you, I was like, wow, I'm so crappy, you know? And that was something that was so like hard for me, you know, just comparing, but we're all on our own path. I'm
Yeah.
like, really, these, you know, yes, I'm a fellow, I went through a residency, I speak 3 fucking languages,
Yeah.
you know? So,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, everybody has their own strengths, and your path is not the same as that other dude's path.
Absolutely.
And his path is not the same as yours or whatever, you know? So exactly, I think that's a big thing, is not comparing yourself.
Absolutely.
And I think this year, I think we've done I think one of my big things, I've found like a really good, positive group of people that we've surrounded ourselves with.
Yeah.
Namely you two, actually.
Aww.
You know, but, and it's true, because I think just also coming from the residency standpoint, you know, it's just, I mean, when I think back, like, we were all just in a rat race, and we're still all, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, I interviewed like 100 jobs this year probably, but it, you know, like,
Yeah.
but it you know, I was like, stop interviewing since you know, but like, but I feel like I've met so many good people this year, and really taken the time this year and I think also my job gave me the time to reflect, to not be so negative on myself, and I think that was one of, you know, those are the positive things that I, you know, experienced this year. It was a great, and I think back to, like, I'll be like, my year in Houston was just a really great time in my life, you know?
Aww.
So, yeah.
I've also always, like, sometimes felt guilty about self-love, being like, if I, like, love where I am now, then I'm not, like, motivated to push myself and become better. And I, like, always, how do you guys, like, deal with that? Like,
That's a really good point. I actually agree with you on some aspects of that. Like, it is very difficult when you get to that point in your life where you've figured out that this is my path that I'm leading, so I don't have to compare myself to anybody else. It's a huge moment of growth, right? Because you're like, well, I don't really have to listen to anybody else anymore. I don't have to, like...
And I don't have to push myself to be better.
Right, exactly. But in the sense, staying stagnant is also not showing yourself self-love either, right? Because if you know that your actual way that you love yourself is by competing with yourself, at least for me, that's how I am. If I know that I am stagnant and I'm not doing something to move me forward or propel myself or to learn or anything like that, I personally am at that point ignoring a part of myself that I love the most, which is my competitive spirit and the ability to continue growing.
Yeah.
So depending on the person that you are, if staying in the present is what makes you happy, there's nothing wrong with that, right? That is fulfilling your journey of self-love. But if your personal journey of self-love is to make sure that you're consistently learning and pushing and learning more about yourself and the path that you're on, then you would be doing yourself a disservice by not continuing.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. And also, Divya, we said earlier, you're very, like myself, and you, like, we were talking about this legit a few hours ago, is we're very future thinking, future directed people, right? So your life in 2 months is going to be so different. All of our lives, you're looking at different jobs. You're moving to a new place. Do you think you're really going to...
Might have to cut that part. Just kidding. Go ahead. Yeah.
But we're moving to new cities.
Yeah, I know, right?
Maybe not you, Rita.
Yeah, I'll be here, but yeah.
But you know, the fact that you're not going to be in the same place, you know, for sure, you're going to start at a new environment, and you're going to be challenged, and you're not, you know, it's definitely not, you're not going to be a stagnant person, you know, that's just not the definition of your life. It's just not going to happen, you know, at least I don't think it will.
Yeah, I mean, I really think you're going to catapult in such an awesome direction, but that's the thing, is you have to be able to envision that yourself, and us telling you that isn't going to be the thing that's going to put you there. It's really just how your process and your path continues to unfold for you, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, so I want to know one word that you guys use to describe self-love for yourself. One word. Ooh.
Yeah.
It gets so hard at that point,
It
right?
does, really.
Just one word.
Micro level.
Yeah.
One word that you describe self-love
Yeah.
yourself.
Mm-hmm. Like if it could be
your
something simple.
definition,
Yeah.
I guess?
Your own personal definition of self-love in your life for you. One word that would describe that.
Massage.
Sleep.
That's a good one. Sleep, yes. Sleep apnea. No, just kidding. Sleep.
Yes.
I think I tend to be a little bit verbose with these things, but
No, it's fine. It's your word or words.
It's my word. Yeah. I think for me, it's
You're
like
the English major. I don't know.
It's a soliloquy. That's
Yeah,
what calls for them.
calling English majors, please.
no, but I don't know if I can put it in one word, but I think it's just like, for me, for the whole thing, it's just, I think for me it would be like, I am enough. 3 words.
Oh, that's
Got
a beautiful one.
3 words.
I'm
I am enough.
going to use that for tomorrow.
Yes.
I'm going to post that tomorrow.
That's been a huge thing for me, like just being able to reflect on that this year. Remember, Divya, we went to that yoga retreat? Like this was like before we met you.
Wow.
And we went on this yoga thing, and that was our instructor was like, think about what you want to focus on, and it was back in like August. And my big thing having come into this year in Houston was thinking I wasn't, like I just finished this residency, I was such a cool baller, chief, and then I come here and I'm like, wow, I'm really, like not so great. But that's the thing. Yes, I am. I'm on my own path. I'm stop comparing myself. I am enough, So that's, I think, loving yourself is all about feeling that way about yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely. I love that one. So we have massage. Is that your final answer? She's like, massage.
She does love massages.
Oh, God. I still have to go try these Thai massages.
Yeah, we
you guys
gotta
are
go. We
talking
gotta
about.
go together.
I don't know. I can't think of a thing for a problem right now.
How about you?
Mine's
One word?
just, I think I have to use 2 words, but I think letting go is probably my self-love, is just letting go
It's a big one,
and knowing that I am enough, right? And just that my path will unfold. And so maybe that's the way that, you kind of tie all those in together. It's just sometimes, as much as I want to control things, because I am a personal control freak, I need to have control over everything in order to ensure that things are done correctly. Learning how to let go has been a very hard challenge, but I continue to learn every day.
And that's a good, even letting go, see, we interpreted that differently. You said it in like a control freak thing. You can also interpret that in like letting go of, bad things that you've gone through, bad relationships, people who let you down. Like I used to hold a lot of grudges. I think that was like me, like, being very angsty or whatever. But like against like very important people in my life, and like you just can't, you gotta let it go. So not only letting go of, trying to control everything, but letting go of things that have hurt you in the past, forgiving.
Forgiving's a big one.
I think that's a big thing that I think letting go is really good.
Yeah. I think forgiving ourselves too is a big one, because I think so many times, especially when you're on this like self-love journey and you're reflecting and you're doing all this stuff and you're like, oh my God, how did I not see that? Or, oh my God, this happened, or whatever. And like, you're like, oh, but I'm smarter than that. And it's like, at the end of the day, we're all really just humans, like learning how to live this life in this world together. And like every single person across the board makes a mistake. And makes numerous mistakes day in and day out. And it's like, how do you, when you finally realize that, you're like, all right, I have to be a little bit more forgiving to myself and maybe people. So
Absolutely.
Something I've been thinking about, like I was talking about with like other people as well, is like, for like one of the reasons I feel very confident and competent in the operating room is because I've done this for 6 years. I've like seen things go really bad, and I've been taught in like, this is how you do it. This is what happens when things go right. This is what happens when things go wrong. And when I walk into a surgery, I always know what the exit plan is. I always know how to stop and get the fuck out. But in a relationship, you're never prepared for that.
Right.
Like nobody prepares you. Nobody tells you like, this is how you do things right. This is how you do things wrong. And nobody tells you what the exit strategy is. And it's in some ways a lot more important than the work we do, right? Like work is like work at the end of the day, even if it's like doing important work. But at the end of the day, like, you come home to your relationship, and that's the most important part of your life. And nobody tells you how to deal with those. There's no guidebook. There's no guidebook about like raising children. There's no guidebook about how to deal with your parents. There's no guidebook about dealing with like marriages or relationships.
Yeah.
And that's supposed to be like I don't know, 60-70% of your life, right? Like that's supposed to be a really important aspect of your life. So why do we prepare ourselves so much for like a smaller portion of our life, and like don't prepare ourselves for like these big things in life?
I don't know if there is an ant. That's a very good observation.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
but I don't think there's ever gonna be like a class on life. You know, like how could there be? You know, like people raise their kids differently, right? There is no guidebook.
Right.
Like, that idea of that, and I mean, I know none of us have kids. Like that is absolutely frightening. You know, but you see, like, yeah, there is no guidebook on relationships. But just like we were talking about earlier, you guys, with every subsequent relationship, you're learning, you're seeing what you don't want, what you do want, what's important to you. You know, you're creating your own, you know,
how to negotiate.
Exactly.
How do you?
You're creating your own iliac artery injury by having a bad relationship.
I don't even know what that means, but I agree.
But it's a bad thing that can happen in the OR, and you know how to deal with that in a very sterile surgical manner in the operating room. So when you have a disastrous or bad relationship or a bad fight with your parents, you fall out with somebody, you learn from every single one of those things. And in the moment, you may not feel like it. It may feel like you're bleeding out your patient, as in the arterial injury. But later, when you recover from that, you'll look back and be like, okay, this is what I learned. But I don't think having a guidebook on life, I don't think that's even possible, you know? And sure, there's people who, you know, promote things and they say this is how I live my life, but, you know, you got to take that.
I mean, I agree. Even psychologists, right? Psychologists are there to help you maneuver and learn how to cope, but they can't teach you how to live your life. Essentially, they're allowing you to figure out these things on your own. They're just there to kind of help you understand yourself a little bit better, but they don't teach you how to live your life.
Yeah.
Right? So there is no real guidebook or like the book of life, Sanchita and Divya's guidelines. We just have to live it, and then from there learn from our mistakes and continue going, or learn the things that you like and things that worked out, and then you're like, okay, that worked, I'll use that, I'll take that and I'll move it over here, or this didn't work, okay, that goes over there, right? Like, it's like we just learn.
And I think your example of the work example, it's so many things, you know, those 6 years, so much happened, and it's all, you know, of course you get emotional about your patients. I've cried when I lost a patient, you know, but it's just not the same as when something goes horribly wrong in your personal life. It's just not that same level of, you have to have that separation at work, what you do, you know?
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that work is a smaller part of our life, and we are so emotionally, physically, like, and like intellectually trained on how to deal with it.
Yeah.
But our personal life, which is obviously a much larger part of our life, is nothing. Nobody's like, you need to come up with a financial plan together. You need to, nobody tells you anything. You just kind of like go out there, get on these fucking dating apps and like meet these like people.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, why aren't we like?
Well, and you think about like I think that's the thing with jobs anyway. Like, I went on my 100 job interviews this year, and that's what these podcasts.
Trial and error. It's all about trial and error.
You know, but one of the places I ended up not taking, but the medical officer was like, "What would you change about your career?" And my biggest thing was, I wish I were less neglectful of my partner. And she was like, she was like, and that lady, she was like grilling me hard, and she was like, that was when she really softened up, and she was like, I think that's what a lot of physicians, like, I mean, I'm very neglectful of my partner, and like, it's, why?
You do a really good job though. You know?
But I really am, you know, and it's tough, you know, we do our best, and he's very patient, and.
I mean, I think you guys are hitting some really good points on relationships. I mean, I think people try to idolize these perfect relationships, like the celebrity relationships, and a good percentage of them end up in failure, right? Like, everybody wanted Brad and
Angelina?
Not Angelina.
Jennifer.
Yeah, see, that's how, right? We all were like, they're the perfect relationship. And even they got it wrong, right? And whether or not it was for infidelity purposes, which never it works out. But it's like, you know, you can be at the top of your game and extremely successful and still not know how to navigate personal relationships. And that's no one's fault. Like, that's just who we are. It's our human nature. Like,
no, it definitely feels like a failure, though.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. It feels like a very personal failure. Like, it really does.
But it doesn't have to be. It can be a learning lesson.
I know, but like, how are you gonna keep learning at 34? Like, I'm done learning. Thank you.
No, but now when I think back, I think I was talking to one of you guys before about this earlier, maybe someone else. But you know, when I saw like something that I went through like with my parents. So my parents' 24-year marriage dissolved, right? I mean, it didn't happen overnight, but like here I was when that happened, I was 18 and absolutely in love with this guy in my freshman year class in college. And it was not a mutual situation. And there I was like in tears and concurrently seeing my dad, like, you know, like his marriage fell apart. 24 years together. And I was like, wow, how did he put up with that? But you know what? He had 30 more years of training than I had at the time and always would have, you know? So yeah, how many more times we're gonna have issues with our jobs, we're gonna have issues with our partners, we're gonna have issues with our friends, our pets, you know?
Right.
But our kids. But it's really I mean, I still think there's things to learn from that. I think my dad learned in his 60s when his marriage fell apart, you know?
Yeah.
You don't want to see that happening, but he's really much older.
Yeah.
You know?
You know, I think what's interesting about all this is that regardless to the relationships that we have on the exterior, our jobs, our personal relationships, if we are at our core not 100% strong in who we are, or that whole self-love concept, like a lot of that can sometimes also bleed into the other relationships. Like, at least for me, I know that's 100% what was going on, at least in the last couple of times that I tried. And I finally, like this year, I was like, enough. Yeah. I'm going to give myself a break. You know?
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm finally going to put myself back out there again and see what goes on. But it's, for me, I know I am at my best self. I'm not financially 100% where I want to be. I, want to continue growing in my career. I want all these things, but I personally know that I'm in my good space where, okay, I can now tackle all these things again. Like, and it's so important. And I think sometimes, at least this is what we've seen, right? And I've heard this from marriages, it's like, oh, I lost myself.
Yeah.
Like, how many times do you hear people say that in their marriage?
Yeah.
Or like
people get so codependent,
yeah.
you know? Like,
and it's, there's nothing wrong. I mean, maybe a psychologist would disagree with me. There's nothing wrong with codependence as long as it's healthy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you want to make sure that you're still maintaining your healthy boundaries of the things that you need to do. I mean, obviously not neglecting your kids and all this other stuff, but being able to create that space that you still exist in this marriage as well, or in the relationship, or in your own personal life outside of work, right? Like, still creating that ability for you to exist is pretty important. At least that's my own observation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So can I take self-love and turn it on its head? Like, how do you recognize, or how do you stop yourself from getting to the point where you're like, I'm so good that, what any feedback you're giving me is like not required, because I am like, I'm like happy in my path. I'm really good at what I'm doing, and therefore I don't need, like taking self-love and making it into arrogance, or making it into ego. Like, how do you like draw that line, or how do you like not cross that line where the self-love is becoming ego?
That's a good question.
I think ego turns it into something negative, right? And you can always feel the difference between somebody who's genuinely in this place of goodness versus a person who's now arrogant. Like, if another person can see it and feel it, then you can definitely tell the difference between the two.
Yeah, but how do you yourself, like, not get to that point,
Well, I think if you are at that point, like you're gonna hit a stagnant point, right? You're not gonna allow yourself to grow because you're like, I'm such a boss, like
right,
like
you
sure.
quit
And
listening and try to.
Exactly.
You're not learning anymore, and you're not essentially
learning
allowing. There's nothing wrong with blocking negative perspective from somebody else, right? There is a good if you are in a really good place, and unfortunately tend to be around negative people, their vibes sometimes you're just like, okay, thank you, I appreciate it, but I'm still gonna follow my path anyway because I don't really need your advice now. That's one sense of like, okay, I love myself, I understand my path. But if it's another thing for somebody to be like, hey, maybe you should, and if it's actually like constructive criticism, or somebody's coming with the intention of love for you and being like, maybe there's something that you might be able to tweak. It doesn't seem like you're on your best, or this is going on and I'm seeing this. If you start hearing more and more people telling you that, I think that's a red flag for yourself, right?
Sure. Yeah.
It's like, hey, Rita, I think you're doing some pretty destructive things. Maybe you should reel it back a little bit, or whatever. Or it looks like you're up here and you're not realistic. Or if you start here, if a majority of people are telling you something, it's probably the truth. If it's just the negative people that you're used to hearing negative stuff from,
right,
then it's a grain of salt, and you know that you're on your own path. And if feeling it, I think it's always checking in with yourself too, honestly.
Yeah.
You know who you are. And sometimes we try to pile a whole bunch of shit on top of it just to hide that person who's on the inside, because we're trying to deflect away from what we're really feeling. Yeah. So I truly think a lot of it is just making sure you're always checking in with your emotions and actually feeling what you're feeling to understand, okay, is this like out of ego, or am I actually on the right path? But even then, right, like we don't genuinely know the truth of that. Mm-hmm. Like there's no real answer to that.
Yeah. Because sometimes I think you do need ego, right? Ego is not always a bad thing.
Right.
No.
Like for self-preservation, sometimes you need it. But then when does that ego become like...
I think it's a balance. I think I could use some more ego, honestly, when you like talking about work and stuff, But yeah, I think it's all a balance.
Yeah, there may be a difference between the word ego and confidence. Which I think confidence tends to be a lot more of the positive side, and ego starts to turn into that, okay, this is good, but it could turn bad if it's played into too hard. Like if we put too much attention on our ego, then that can turn negative. But if we're more focused on the confidence and the outcome of the confidence portion of what we're looking at, it might be something that seems a little bit more positive.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good points.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Rita.
Thank you very much, ladies. This was so much fun. I'm so excited. I feel like we're hitting right at I can't believe we talked for 47 minutes.
Wow. That was very enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you guys for listening.
Good luck.
Thanks again for joining me for another episode of Empowerment and All That. For daily inspirational messages, follow me on Instagram at Rita, RITA_Bautista, BAUTISTA 1111, or you can follow Empowerment and All That on Instagram and on Facebook. And remember, keep it positive or don't keep it at all.